always waiting by to hear
Damn.
from them. So when they call, I gotta go.
Yeah, you got to pay the bills.
Yeah, that's it.
So, so if you become an engineer, I assume that's what your title will be when you're finished with the school and after a couple of years of doing jobs that they force you to do before you get a full promotion. But eventually, will you be like a full engineer?
Yeah, I mean it's only like now they've it used to be like a 6 month training. You go down to McDonough, Georgia and train for 6 months or 6 weeks, sorry.
Mhm.
Now it's only like 3.5 weeks. So once you get done with school, you come back to where you actually work and then train for like I think it's like 6 months on job training and then your actual engineer. You just got to start over. So like your seniority goes from like high when you're a conductor back down to the bottom. So then you
I
start,
see.
and then you work your way up. So it's
That makes
just a
sense.
shitty schedule, right off
Mhm.
the bat.
Well, I hope the hard work pays off, man.
Yeah, yeah, it will. Just a tough career, I mean, you're going all the time and stuff, but it is
Hmm.
what it. Like you
It
said,
is
you
what
got to.
it is. Well, it's impressive to put that many hours in to take care of your family, man. It's got to be something people respect.
Yeah, yeah. It's not hard work. It's just like you said, a lot of hours being away
Hmm.
from stuff. But yeah, right. Better than digging ditches.
All right, let's play some music. Get the show on the road here, John Boy.
Let's do it. Back again, you weirdos. 74. I think.
74.
74.
It's
Pretty soon I'm going to be 74. Dude, I feel 74 years old today, to be honest with you. But anyway, we have a special guest tonight, Mr. Paul Talbott. Thanks for joining us, sir.
No problem.
Yeah, man, I'm psyched to have you on. Your name gets brought up a lot in the show, especially, with the success you've had at various weights and stuff like that. So I know people have a lot of questions for you. And as we were just chatting about, I know your work schedule is crazy, so I'm glad we were able to carve out an hour to talk to you.
Cool.
Yeah, man. So, WAL 165, 195. You've done both. You've won hammers in both. Tell us about that stuff, man. I mean, why did you decide to do 195s this year? First of all.
Well, it just got to be too much. Like at first it was all right. Like when I was in my mid 20s and stuff, cutting 165 wasn't nothing. I worked outside, so
Mhm.
I mean it would come off easy. And then just as I started to get older and stuff, and last couple of years, it's just I had to be on a diet like almost all year just to stay close to being able to cut that weight. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So it was kind of, and then as far as my lifestyle nowadays, it's hard to do everything and then just enjoy life with my family, and be on a diet. I got 3 kids. We all like ice cream. We all like cheeseburgers. So I mean, it's just something we couldn't do together. So I mean, I just made the decision that I wasn't going to do it anymore, and it was like the perfect time because nobody knew that WAL was about to crash. So I mean, it kind of worked out great, and I was still able to win another title. So worked out good for me.
Hmm. What do you walk around at?
Now or then,
Yeah, well, I mean, normally.
like when the last couple years when I was cutting, like if I wanted to just eat whatever I wanted and not worry about it, it was like 190, 193. Um, when I first started, I actually was around like 208, 209 before I started arm wrestling.
Mhm.
It was the biggest I ever been, but then I cut down. But yeah, I'd say the last couple years, just, walking around. Weight was around 190, 193. And then, I'd have to start cutting weight 4 months or so out just to get down to around like 183, 185, something like that. And then just stay there. And then, like last 2 weeks, try to get down into like the low 80s, high 70s to make the rest of the cut.
So how did you do that? Was it just diet control, or did you have any special tricks you used?
I mean, just like everybody else does nowadays, just a hard diet, real clean, high protein, low fat, low carb, and then just water manipulation at the end.
Yeah. Did you feel a difference in your power level at 165 versus 195?
Everybody asked me that, and I always told them I don't really know. I mean, I felt the same. Either there really was a difference, or us 165ers really ain't that far away from 195 strength. You know what I mean? It's hard for me to say that I'm way stronger now because I don't really know.
Mm-hmm. Well, we were talking about that last week on the show, is the fact that you and Justin did so well, and that Tony competed as well, and 195s and had some pretty good wins. It does say a lot about the power level between the two classes. It might not be as far apart as people thought.
Right, and I agree with that too. And then Shea Dickey was right there too. I mean, he had a couple good tough matches at the beginning, but if he'd have got a different bracket, he'd have been right there with us too. So I mean, all of us that came up had potential in winning or if not placing, top 4, top 5. So
Did you pick up on any differences in pulling the bigger guys, or did it feel the same?
No, I mean, like, I'd say probably the biggest difference, and it didn't really affect me because it was opposite, was they're a lot faster at 165 than they are 95. They're more grinders or sideways pullers, but they're not really fast hitters into their position. So it kind of helped me to be able to get where I needed to be, just as fast, if not faster, being, in the bigger weight class. Not that there ain't fast pullers, like Craig Toulier and that, but
Yeah,
and you're not exactly a small human being in general. Like you are a very long, tall 165er. So some of the advantages that the 195s might have in terms of body size in general, maybe you don't get affected so much by that.
Right. Yeah. Because it's kind of funny to say it, but really, I'm just as big, if not bigger, than most 195ers too. I mean, muscle tone not really, but structure, I'm right there with them still. So.
Well, I mean, that's clear. I mean, you went through an extremely tough left-handed class, so it wasn't like nobody showed up. I mean, going through Hutchings and Solaris and all the rest of the guys in there, that's an extremely deep class that you guys had. So it's impressive, man. I mean, I don't think a lot of people were predicting that, to be honest with you. I was surprised. It was impressive. I mean, I think you have the height of a 195er anyway, and you look like a 195er, but it's because you're also aware that, Todd Hutchings cuts from 225 or whatever to make 195, so you're going against really much bigger guys in some cases.
Yeah, for sure.
Anyway, I think it's cool, man. It was fun to watch. I mean, I was glad. We talked a lot about, obviously, what happened with the WAL collapse and everything, but it looked like the tournament itself was pretty fun and run well.
Yeah, right. I was actually pretty surprised. I mean, I figured there'd be a lot of people that would still come, but you've seen all that stuff on social media where everybody was dogging it and, trying to, I don't know if they were dissing on it, but, just didn't want to go and that. And then I figured there'd be a lot of people there, but I didn't think that there would be the volume that actually showed up. I mean, the talent was still to the roof.
Yeah, absolutely. Which I think is a good thing, I mean, I think a lot of people worked hard to make sure that was going to happen, and that, people like you who went down there were going to be paid the respect that you earned for training so hard and traveling and spending money and everything. And so I'm glad that most of the classes were almost as deep as they would have been normally. I mean, really, it was like only one or two big names were missing from a couple of the classes, and everybody else was there. So it seemed like it was just about as big as it would have been had it not been canceled and then restarted.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it might have been a little different. The brackets might have fell a little different, but yeah, for the most part, I mean, it was a great tournament. I mean, for as short as it was to get it all together and everything, they did a great job.
Yeah.
And turned out great.
Yeah, and at that point, with that kind of a competition, you're talking about, the brackets. If you set that tournament different every week, you could imagine the differences of the top four. I mean, maybe there'd be exactly. there of course would be repeat people in there, but man, like you said, Shea Dickey, he's as tough as nails, and you change up the bracket a bit, and he's so aggressive, you never know.
Yep, I agree. Yep.
Well, it's tough with tournaments, I mean, exactly. I mean, if you switch a couple names from one side to the other, the whole thing looks different. It's the hard part about tournament pulling. Do you prefer tournaments or super matches in general?
I really haven't done too many super matches, so I can't really say that I like tournament pulling better than super matches. I know that I feel that that's the only way you're going to find out who the best arm wrestler in the country is, opposed to bracket arm wrestling, because just like John just said, I mean, if you set them up different every single week, there's going to be at least one, maybe 2, 3 guys that are in there that weren't in there the week before. So I can't say that I like one better than the other, but I know, the super match pulling is the only way to find out who the baddest dude is. So.
Well, maybe we'll see you in a few more super matches in the upcoming year, so we can establish that. So again, Joel Hudick is telling you that you should go back down, and Sam Harris is saying stay where you are. So getting votes for both. So now that WAL is gone, what do you think you're going to be doing? I know you got a very busy time coming up in your life with school and stuff, but do you think you're going to be traveling for tournaments? And if so, what kind of events would attract you?
I don't know, man. I've just been kind of just sitting back and, enjoying my days off and still training. I've been doing a lot more weight training than actual arm wrestling. I'm still getting it in, but I'm just kind of sitting back and seeing what's unfolding, and not really dedicating any of my time or vacation time or anything like that towards a tournament right now, just because of the situation I'm in. But I don't know, man. I don't know where to go or what to do. I'm not relieved that it's over, WL, as far as that goes, but it's just kind of nice not to have crunch time. It's like it was always crunch time, always had to train. So I mean, I'm able to do what I like to do as far as, having fun with my kids and stuff with my friends and still lifting and trying to get stronger, but kind of just sitting back in the shadows, waiting for the next best thing,
That's what everybody else is doing too. No, that's good, man. I think, it's probably going to be good for you too, because, when you're training like that, your body never has the time to recover and like get back to normal, and all the little nagging injuries that we all have start to heal up, and you end up being a lot stronger on the other side of it.
Yeah,
which is a good thing. So let's see, we got questions coming in for you, Paul. Here's one from Chile, from Tomas. He wants to know, is there an exercise? We always get this question, so just the kind of stuff that they always feel like there's like, and I ask him too, so it's not Tomas's fault, but I always want to know like what the secret is. Like his question is, what exercise do you consider to be the most important to help you get to an elite level?
Well, I'd have to say the most important for me is what I'm good at. You know what I mean? Whatever your moneymaker is what I like to train the best, because not only do you like to do it, but you're strong at it. So, I always keep it nice and strong, and then work in stuff I don't really like to do, like, a lot of flat hand top rolling or hooking. I'm not the best hooker in the world, but I try to get it in, but I shy away from it more than I do, like a high hook or something like that. Mm-hmm. So that's what I'd say is I train my move the most out of everything that I do.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's smart. That's that's similar to what judo guys do. They pick one or two techniques that they love, and they just work it to death until they have such a high skill level. The muscle memory, and just like your brain doesn't have to think about the technique, and you just do it. When I watched you pull in a couple of matches, I was watching you with Quinlan and also with Doug Ehrlich. I noticed that you go back and forth, capping and not capping. Also, I don't know if that depends on whether you're into straps or not, but like, what helps you decide the kind of hand positioning you want to have in a match?
Well, usually I try to always cap, but it's sometimes those WAL or AAA straps are so thin, they get so tight that sometimes it's hard to cap and it's hard to close your hand.
Sure.
So it's kind of like the spur of the moment thing, you know. I really always aim to cap and get my height advantage, but sometimes that strap's just so tight that you can't even get a real good bite. So then I'll you know, I won't cap, but I try to cap, you know, most of the time. But if I can't, then I'll result to not capping. But
do you practice both?
I mess around with both. Yeah, I mean, I haven't really found an advantage to not capping opposed to capping. I mean, for me anyway, it's all about height and using my long lever. So I mean, I do try them both, but you know, I like capping.
Yeah, and it's not like you have a, you know, sometimes when you grab lower, it kind of helps with like a shorter fingers if you can kind of get around a little bit. And I don't really see you having that problem with too many people in that class anyway.
Right. Yeah, I feel pretty comfortable with everybody's hand. That I mean, I've felt some big hands. Like Celieris got huge hands,
Sure.
but I was kind of used to that from pulling Fisher too. So we're different. His is a little thicker than like Alan Fisher's, but I was still all right with it because I've felt a big hand like that before, you know.
Do you feel like that plays a big role, or do you think people put too much emphasis on hand size?
I really don't know, because I've pulled some guys with little hands and are monsters, you know, and it makes so much of a difference, and those guys, you know, they're monsters, and their hands aren't very big. The only thing that I ever have issues with is like the thickness, you know, and being able to get a good reach around the back of your hand. But besides that, I mean, obviously a really, really small hand is to a disadvantage, but an average to a big hand, it really doesn't make any difference to me. It doesn't seem to affect me real bad.
I think just like anything in the sport, I think it has to be strong. You know, I've gripped out with big hands that were pretty weak. So it's like, you know, how much of if you're not going to be strong, how much of an advantage really is it, you know? And I've gripped up some pretty small hands that were like little nails in the back of my hand. You know what I mean? You top roll into them and you're like, Jesus. That thing, I feel like if I put my hand backwards on the table, you could fingerprint that guy. Like those kind of, you know, that kind of finger pressure. And it's like, I don't care about how big your hand is, you know?
Yep.
It's an interesting point. I mean, it's always one of those things we go back and forth about. And some people feel like the arm length and the size of the hand, and as you guys both said, there's excellent arm wrestlers in all sizes of hand and arm length, and I think it is really about learning how to use the body that you have. Did you get to pull, I don't remember if you did or not, did you get to pull, well, you weren't in the same class last year, the Steel Giraffe, Nicholas Nanestad?
I did not, no.
Yeah, I didn't know if you had a chance on the practice table. I would like to see that match because you guys have a similar, I think he's probably a little bit taller than you, but in terms of arm length, I think you're probably pretty even.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really know what his arm length is, you know, but I'd like to see it, you know. I'm not saying that I'd do great, win or lose, but I just like to see how much of a, you know, is it really just his height of his whole body, or is his arm really that long, you know? So, I mean,
he's definitely a strap master. He's really got top rolling and a strap down to a science. It was impressive to see. I think that'd be a fun match to watch you in, though, if you ever get him, if he shows back up over on this side. Actually, do you have any interest in going to the, World Championships, WAF?
I've actually thought about it. I mean, for right now, it's nowhere in my future, but I'd like to do it. I mean, it's even just to watch, I think it would be amazing, you know, but to compete in it would be great. and I was going to try to in 2012, but it fell through, so I wasn't able to do it. But definitely one day I would definitely like to.
Yeah, I'd love to see you over there, man. I think, we have so many incredible. I mean, I think, you could be at like, what is it, 186? Because that would be closer to what you walk around at, because they have the 85 kilo class over. I think that's what it is, 186. I'd love to see you in that class, man, against guys like, Sasha Andreev and, I don't know. I guess Prudnik is pulling 90 kilograms these days, but Oleg Zok would be in there, and he's a lefty, so that would be fun to see, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that guy's an animal, but he hasn't faced a lot of people with super tall arms, though. Most of the guys he pulls, obviously his arm's probably going to be bigger than everybody he pulls, but in terms of height, he hasn't pulled a lot of elite top rollers lately. So that'd be fun to see.
I don't know. He handled Dimitri pretty well. Trubin.
Dimitri, I guess so. Dimitri's hard to. I mean, he's a tricky guy to even understand. His level seems to go up and down so quickly for some reason. I don't know, man. Anyway, it'd be good to see you over there.
Yeah, or what is it, Nearnoff or something like that.
Oh, that's Laitor, yeah. That's a big money one. Yep. We'll see how he does over there. Let's see. Here's a question from Jonathan about, do you have a favorite arm wrestler to watch?
To watch all my opponents. I like to watch them all. But as far as fun to watch, I mean, I got a lot of people that I like to watch, and I like their charisma and just, the energy they bring to the table. But I always used to love to watch Cobra pull, and it kind of saddens my heart that he's starting to, not shy away from it, but just not, be into it as much as he used to. And he was my all-time favorite to watch,
Yeah, definitely. Very, very few lightweights that had his kind of style and his kind of dominance, especially like in the late '90s and early 2000s. Like he was really, he was one of the few lightweights from the U.S. that was going to WAF and doing a lot of damage. He's definitely something else.
Yeah, for sure.
And the East Coast boy, Rhode Island. Used to train with Norm Devio.
Norm Devio. No, he's 77. He's still pulling, man. So it's like, people. Yeah. There's normal people like Cobra who's like, all right, I've done this 30 years, that's good. And then there's people like Norm Devio who can't stop pulling. And Crazy George, he's in his late 60s. They just want to pull and pull and pull forever. Yeah, 77, man.
You're holding up.
It's crazy. I feel like I'm too old to pull, man, but actually I don't really think that. Let's see. Who's the I just say that kind of crap, man, because I like to make fun of the fact that I'm 46. Did I tell you that recently? Actually, you sang happy birthday, I think, John, on this show. Or was it on the show? I don't know. You should have sung it. You definitely should have. I think next year we're going to have to make it happen. We should sing you happy birthday, too, actually. What are you going to be, 22 next year?
32.
Okay, 32. Yeah. Something like that. All right, Paul Lynn wants to know who's the strongest left-handed 195 that you've ever pulled.
That I've ever pulled?
Yeah.
Well, seeing that I just started pulling 195s, I'd have to say, and he knows the answer to this question. He's just setting me up for this because he knows what I'm supposed to say. But I'd have to say Kenny Smith is the strongest guy that I've ever felt, at 195. No, I have never pulled him in a tournament, you know what I mean? But on the arm wrestling table, as of right now, I haven't arm wrestled a lot of 195ers, but this guy is a stud.
Oh yeah, Kenny's always been a stud.
Right.
He's just one of those guys who's always that strong. He just doesn't come out enough. He is unbelievable though inside, and his hand is strong too.
Yeah, he is. He is a beast.
Mm-hmm.
He is. It's interesting. I was trying to set up all these super matches for the New England Championships that we have coming up in October, and he asked. He wanted to have one. He had like 5 different names, and they all said no. So I was like, okay, nobody wants to pull Kenny, So I think that some people agree with you. He's a beast.
Yeah.
It's too bad, man.
He's got to give him a chance, you know what I mean? So.
Yeah, Ryan Bowen is saying Danny Tesh. Danny Tesh was impressive, man. There's no doubt about it. He's a serious guy.
He would be number 2 for sure.
If he lived closer, we'd get him in a super match over here, man. We're talking to Ryan next week because he has a magic formula on how to raise money for arm wrestling tournaments, and it worked for him. He's flying, Justin Bishop out there for a super match. So whatever he did obviously worked. So I want to hear about it because I want to try it too. Maybe we can fly Danny Tesh over there for a match with you, Paul, in a few months.
Yeah, or get him to pull Kenny. That'd be a good one. Kenny.
Yeah, that would be good. Are there any guys on your list?
That match, but
yeah. Well, who do you want to pull in the next year if you had a chance? Are there any people that you'd like to try yourself against?
Nope, I don't really do that. You know what I mean? I've people ask me that and stuff. I don't got no secret hit list or anything like that. I've always wanted to be the best arm wrestler ever. I mean, just like all of us. But I mean, right now I just kind of like I said, just sitting back and trying to get this school over with, and then if something comes up, then I'll give her a shot. But I mean, as far as who to pull next or whatever, it's I won the WAL that happened. You know what I mean? But is there still great 195ers out there that I haven't beat? Of course, you got Rob Vigent, you got Kenny Smith, you got Jordan Seal, you got the Iron Giraffe. I mean, there's so many left-handers still that I haven't pulled, that might beat me or they might not. So, I mean, one day maybe, but as of right now, I'm not really gunning for anybody at all.
That's fair enough.
Yeah, and the sport's not going anywhere. It'll always be here, and people, those guys, like even guys like Craig Toulier, these guys are never going to stop training until they're absolutely done.
Right.
So it's not like they're going to get out of shape and not be ready, to take something.
Right.
So.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of matches we can talk about on the next week, so we don't have to embarrass you. We'll talk about all the people we want to see you against, and then we'll send you super match requests afterwards. Get you to travel around the country. Yeah, people were just saying that they admire that you're a humble guy, and it is a cool thing because, I mean, people like the crazy people like, Travis Bagent, and we had Jeff Hale on last week, but they also respect people that have some humility in the sport, and you're definitely one of those guys. It's good to see.
Yeah, good. Thanks, man.
So instead of talking about that, let's talk about your training. Like, when you're ramping up for an event, what does your training look like? And how many days are you on the table? And, I mean, lifting every day, or what kind of stuff are you doing?
Well, I try to lift at least 5 days a week, and then I'll do arm wrestling training within those 5 days as much as my body can let me do it. Like my elbows, I was having elbow issues for a long time, and I had some back issues the last year. So I was trying to get it in, every other day, but always possible. So I would do it at least twice a week, as arm wrestling specific training, and then try every weekend to practice. I mean, sometimes my body just wasn't ready for once a week, but I would try, and then if not, I just do 2 or an extra arm wrestling training on the weekend, like a Saturday or Sunday, throw in another one if I couldn't make it to a practice. But yeah, I mean, and then I work out of town, so I can go to the gym. I get a lot of free time when I'm out of town, so I'm at least going into the gym and picking something heavy up and setting down.
And when you're talking about training twice a week, arm wrestling specific, you're talking about gym time arm wrestling specific?
Well, I got my own stuff at my house,
sure.
So I mean, but yeah, I mean, it's twice a week for sure, or all arm wrestling stuff, like handles, bands, pronation, supination,
right,
and all the moves on the table and off, and then the other 3-4 days is just weight training, or some sort of rehab if need be,
So when you do weights, are there certain exercises that you feel like have helped you out the most?
Like as far as weights, I mean, it's twice a week for sure. Arm wrestling stuff, like handles, bands, pronation, supination, and then the other 3-4 days is just weight training, if need be, I don't really know because I'm not really a strong guy as far as weights. I've never been able to lift heavy. Can't. Some guys are posting videos of them curling like 100, 140 pounds, and I've never been able to do that. Like 50 pounds is my max that I do reps with, and it's not even 10. It's like 6 or 4 or something like that. And I've never really even pushed it. You know what I mean? I just do what I feel like I can do, and I get a good pump out of it, and go until I get sore or tired, and then put them away.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I've noticed that you do a lot of different techniques when you arm wrestle. I mean, so do you work on that stuff at the table, like when you turn into press people, and sometimes you let your wrist go a little bit and you press from that position? And is that stuff that just comes out in the tournaments, or are those things that you concentrate on when you're practicing?
Yeah, that's my desperation move. I never I never ever practice that. It's just it's just in tournaments, and when I lose my hand or at least get flattened out, it's the last resort. So I know that I can do it. So I don't ever really train it because I don't ever want to do it.
I hear you.
I don't really ever want to win like that. But I mean it's a good tool that I got. So.
So do you think, like when you're doing arm wrestling stuff, either with a team or just working on the table by yourself, do you try to do, I know you said you practice the hook a lot. Obviously, top roll is your main thing, but do you concentrate on side pressure too? Or is that something, again, that you just have built by arm wrestling over the years?
No, I don't really do it because it puts so much pressure on my inner elbow. I mean, I'll do it not straight sideways. I don't ever do like a straight sideways. More like, I guess it is still side pressure, but I never really base anything or any training I do on just pushing straight sideways. I just don't feel like my elbow can really take it to actually, push it or try to make it stronger. So.
Fair enough. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people say that. I mean, it's really hard to work it anyway. And I mean, some people like Todd seem to be able to do it, and an endless amount and not blast their elbow. But for most of us, it kills when we do it. So it's always a tough thing to work on. And I know a lot of people do, static holds in that way, in that direction to try to develop it. But even that can sometimes be tough. So it's interesting. Everybody has a different approach for that, but I kind of like your idea, which is that you're focused on what your main tools of what you're good at, and trying to develop it, doing things that help to improve it, and we're really relying on that one technique because it does work. I mean, that's something that a lot of people have proven. I mean, for every time we talk about someone who has 6 different techniques they can win with, there's probably 5 or 6 examples of people who have one technique that they're just extremely dominant with.
Right, yeah. Yeah, and I mean, I feel like as long as I can get into my spot, I got a fighting chance against anybody. So, I mean, I feel like, if I train it and, whether it's speed or just being a little bit more powerful with my cup or something, I know if I can get to where I'm strong, I have a fighting chance. So, I've always work to make it stronger than what it already is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think people also kind of overlook, like if we talk about having a specific move that you're really good at, right? There's a lot of different levels to that. There's getting there, there's keeping it, and then there's finishing with it. So there's a lot of different aspects to even one move, right? Because if you can get it, but then you can't keep it, then really it's not that great of a move. So
yeah, it's not that great.
Yeah, so there's a lot of things you can do to work inside of that one move too.
Yep, you're absolutely right.
What is your rest period leading up to, like, say, one of the major WL events?
Oh wow, what is the average arm wrestler is my question, because mine has been quite a few different approaches, and I haven't really found one to work better than the other. But that's my question to you guys. What's the average? And then I'll tell you what I
7 to 10 days is what people usually that we interview say they don't arm wrestle usually for 10 days and don't lift anything heavy for 7 days. I would say that would be the average.
All right, this you guys are gonna love this. Not last year, but the years leading up to that, I would take 3 weeks off.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I do.
3 weeks. And I always got in my mind, it's too long, I'm getting weaker, or I'm losing strength, or my edge will be gone. But I mean, I did it for years. I mean, I didn't do it last year, but the year before that, and that's when I was winning, and it was 3 weeks. I would do like pump exercises and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Just hand, wrist, I wouldn't touch them for 3 weeks.
I'm totally on board with that. I mean, I'm older than you, but I feel the same way, man. At the 3 weeks for me, and it's like probably 16, 17 days, maybe 3 weeks full. I did 3 weeks full before Worlds last year, and by the time the tournament started, I felt like, I felt totally immovable. Like, I felt like I was at my maximum power level. Everything was healed. I didn't have any pain, and I was, I felt great. So I've been doing that twice a year for USAF Nationals, which is the World Qualifier, and for Worlds I'll take that much of a break. For everything else, I'm doing 6 or 7 days because I don't want to take huge amount of time off from training from those 2 main events that I'm focusing on. But I agree with you. I think 3 weeks, and you still do like pull-ups and some light reps and stuff like that. I feel like I feel amazing at the end of it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yep. Absolutely. And what are you really going to gain inside 3 weeks?
Exactly.
Opposed to what you might hurt or injure, and then be done before you even get a chance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, we're so as athletes, we're so focused on training and building and all this whole process of beating ourselves down and resting enough and eating enough and all that kind of stuff that we forget what the real goal is to show everybody what we've been doing. And to be the very best we can be. And really the rest is where that stuff comes from. As much as it hurts everybody's heart to admit it, it comes from the rest. You're never, when you're training at home and you're training on the weekend with your team or whenever you're on the table, you really shouldn't ever be 100%. You should be able to work hard and you should be able to do everything you want to do, but you should be like 102% at the tournament. And that's where that rest comes from.
Yeah. And it is tough, especially for people that are serious. You train, and like you were just talking about a few minutes ago, Paul, with the WAL, you're training so hard every day. If you're doing arm wrestling stuff 2 days and lifting 5 days, and that goes on for months at a time, you're so in a rhythm with it to just stop it. It does make you feel like, oh my God, I'm slacking off. People are going to pass me in this last couple of weeks. It takes some mental fortitude to. And Paul Wynn is on here saying that he can't rest. Maybe he'll take Friday and Saturday off before a tournament, but that's about it. And he's actually a good example because he pulled out a tournament the week before WL, and then he went down there and WL and did really well in the amateur classes. So I mean, it's very difficult to stop and give your body the rest that it needs.
Right. Imagine how strong he would have been if he wouldn't have pulled that tournament the weekend.
I know.
Keep pulling.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that idea. I think Paul should always pull before the day before any tournament that I'm going to be in. That'll work for me.
Me too.
Gene is saying that he feels like his. Actually, I don't know if this is a man or a woman, Gene. Could be either one. Either way, we love you, man or woman. So I feel my muscle memory. He says, I feel my muscle memory feels solid if I do at least very light arm wrestling movements like cupping, multi-spinner before a tournament. Yeah, I think you got to do something because, you need the blood flow in there. If you completely stop everything, you get into hypotrophy, which is the opposite of hypertrophy, which your muscles start hurting from lack of exercise. You got to do something. For me, it's like, pull-ups and push-ups do the trick, but, whatever works for you is, okay, I'm messing up people's names, man. Send me a letter. I'll write you an apology.
Yeah, and with most arm wrestlers who train very regularly, doing things like some light work just to get some blood flow and stuff, that doesn't make us sore. That doesn't take away from the end goal, which is to be the best you can be. That just, if anything, heals things, rehabs things, makes sure that everything's moving correctly, all that kind of stuff. So it probably ends up laying down a little bit more of that, collagen and the scar tissue in the right directions rather than in the wrong directions, so you're not so stiff, just so you can perform the best you can.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I love this stuff, man. It's like there's a lot of science that goes into it. And I personally, I love talking to guys like you, Paul, because I agree with your approach. I'm a top roller too, and I work on my hook a lot just because I don't like it to be a weakness. But I do feel that having one strong technique trumps having, 3 pretty good techniques. I think if you just, I mean, if you have faith in it and you really work on it, and if somebody beats you and you gave them everything you had on your number one technique, then, more power to them. Good for them. Yep. But at least, you went in, using what you were best at, and they used what they're best at. That's what it's about. That's like a true battle.
And let's talk about something I'm kind of interested in, Paul. You had a pretty major injury when you were new.
Yeah. Yeah, it was, I started in January of 2010, I believe, and in November of 2010, I broke my arm at a practice, yep.
Was that right arm?
No, that was left.
Oh, left, okay.
Yeah.
Did you require surgery or anything, or was it just...
Well, it happened in Erie when I trained up there every weekend with Relentless, and they told me up there, I went to the hospital up there, they told me that I needed surgery, but I didn't have any insurance at the job that I had. So they're like, yeah, you need surgery and you should get surgery, but we don't want to do it here. You should go home. That way you got your doctors and you'll have, be able to go to your visits with your own doctor and be able to. I believe that they were pretty much just, trying to get me out of there because I didn't have any insurance at all. But I went to the hospital the next day because they didn't do anything for me. So I waited till the next day and went, and they pretty much said the same thing. You could have it, but then you're going to have, maybe more stress because you'll have a plate in there. So if you try this again, it might break in other spots and this and that. So they ended up just trying to get it back to where, it should be. And then, it was in a cast, which it's nowhere near where it should be. I don't believe.
You don't think so?
It works where it's at. So I'm not too disappointed with it.
How long did you wait before you pulled with it again?
I think it was about a year before I actually started messing with it. Maybe a little sooner than that, but I know it was over a year or around a year before I actually started pulling with it. Mm-hmm. Whether I could have done it sooner, I don't know. I didn't really even want to try it, but
yeah.
It was at least a year before I started pulling.
Now, would you say that your left is your dominant arm now in terms of arm wrestling?
It always was. I'm left-handed, so but yeah, definitely. My right it's nowhere near where my left is.
Mm-hmm. Well, see, Dave Chafee had the same experience. He broke his right arm, and he came back, and his right arm is insane. It's interesting, people talk about, the bone heals stronger, it gets a little bit thicker, and then it's very unlikely to break ever again. And this is probably someone who's broken the same arm twice, but it does seem that if you give it the time to heal, when you come back, your arm actually has made improvements over that time, which I think is very interesting.
Yeah, because I don't really understand the concept because it's just the bone, you know what I mean? Unless you're doing like a bone lock press or something like that, it's obviously happens, and it happened to me and it happened to Dave but how, you know what I mean? Because it's just the bone. It's not like we ruptured tendons or, something like that or cartilage. Cartilage, yeah, but I don't really understand the concept of a bone getting broken in half and then turns you out to be a better arm wrestler. But obviously, somehow, it does affect it.
Yeah, I mean, my guess, I don't know the answer to that question. I mean, I'm guessing just from talking to some physical therapists about this issue in the past is that the bone heals a little bit thicker. And, particularly if you're wrestling it properly and giving it the time to heal and not putting undue stress on it, that it does heal stronger. And that it therefore can support more strength and gives you some, I think it's more linear pressure, more linear strength in there than you had before, just based on the thickness. I know that's one of the things that when you get x-rayed and you're an arm wrestler, you frequently get comments about the health of your bones because we put so much pressure on them that they do thicken over time. It seems like that kind of trauma might just make it thicker, but that's a good question because I really don't know.
Yeah, because it's not like the attachments to where they are on the bone changes or anything like
exactly.
The soft tissue doesn't change at all. I'm wondering if it just if it's a clean break and it heals properly and you give it the right amount of rest, that it just doesn't negatively affect you. You know what I mean? Like, you may have been on that road anyway. It just didn't take away from it. Whereas some guys, tear biceps or whatever, and they really never come back quite the same,
Right, exactly.
Yeah, maybe the bone just doesn't take away if it's healed correct.
I don't know. There's a lot of weird things with the body. I mean,
Right.
I think the thing about the arm break is you have to be very mentally strong to come back and pull again with a broken arm, because a lot of people don't do it. Because, especially I'm sure the first time you got back on the table and pulled for real, you must have had those thoughts in the back of your mind, like, is this arm going to hold up?
Yeah, I wasn't too sure about it, but like I said, I took it easy, so I was pretty confident by the time that I got into a tournament that it was going to hold up, because I had good teammates and stuff, and we eased into everything, and I was pretty confident that it was going to be all right at that time.
So you attributed a lot of that to your teammates really taking care of you after, with the rehab and the rebuilding.
Sure, yeah, because everybody knows there's a certain guy at a certain practice that just tees off on you every single time and will not let you win ever. So I was pretty fortunate that, I had a good group around me that, let me work, and it all worked out pretty good. So,
well, Brzezinski has said that in the past, that the very most important aspect of arm wrestling training is having a great team around you. So I imagine having, an elite level top row like Cobra, being able to train with him as frequently as you did must have been an incredible help developing the top row.
Well, actually, never trained with Cobra.
Really?
Ever? No, never.
Well, then I retract.
No, but where that like WAL and stuff on TV and stuff.
Yeah.
They come up with that. I mean, I told him that he's one of my mentors, and I love to watch him arm wrestle, and we're really good friends and stuff. But as far as training with him, I've never got to train with Cobra.
I bought into the hype.
But yeah, right. But most when I started, like I said, Relentless, Erie, James, Bart, Dave is where I started, and then I met some good group of people around where I live eventually, and then once work picked up, I wasn't able to go up there as often. By then I knew my own stuff and was able to get by with the guys around here and training by myself. So
yeah, like that group, the Erie guys. I mean, it's not really much of a secret. They produce some great arm wrestlers. And,
absolutely.
Those things do happen. I mean, it's not a mistake when you have an area that produces good athletes that are, strong and healthy and well-rounded and all that kind of stuff. You should really start paying attention to what those people do as far as even keeping each other healthy. Like, the biggest thing in this sport that I've learned over the last 8 years I've been doing it is health. You can be super strong, you can be super technical and understand the game, and if you go in all fucked up, well, guess what? You're probably going to get fucked up in the tournament. Like the guy who is at 95% strength but 100% health is going to be dangerous that day.
Yeah.
He's going to have every tool.
I agree.
And a lot of teams just don't. It's, we, like you said, we've all been there. Everybody has that one guy who wants to tee off and everybody to win. And all it takes is a little tweak that turns into a big problem.
Yep, you're right.
So I'm reading these little articles that Gene just posted up here about bone density and what happens after a break. And it's sort of it's telling us we were half right and half stupid. The part we are right about is that the more you arm wrestle, or they're using racquetball players as an example, that your bone does thicken slowly over time, and the more you put stress on it, the thicker it'll get, and that it continues throughout your life. So your bone can continue to gain density as long as you're eating healthy. However, it also says that that it's a myth that when you break your arm, that it heals stronger than it was before, and that the only reason that would happen is if the training you did continued and the bone continued to get thicker and thicker and thicker, and that's why you don't break it again. It's because you didn't give up on training. So maybe it's an old wives' tale, but it seems true.
Yeah,
Well, someone was just posting over here that, I mean, like, a whole bunch of people have broken their arms and then gone on to be world class. We just talked about you and Chafee and Zoloev. And Philippe says Brzezinski broke his arm. Is that true?
He broke his elbow. He broke his elbow when he was a kid, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So, but anyway, I don't know, was that his right arm?
Yep. Arm wrestling, too.
There's another name. So there's a lot of people that have broken their arm and come back to be world beaters. So it's anecdotal evidence anyway. I don't know.
It's good enough for me.
Yeah, thanks for those articles, James. Those are cool. We should call one of these doctors up and get him on here and talk to him about it more.
Yeah.
So we get a lot of people asking, Paul, I mean, do you know what your next tournament's going to be?
No, I don't. Like I said, I've been waiting for them to call. I might go and have to leave next month. It might be September, it might be October. So it's like I've told a couple people, I'm going to try. If I can make it, I will, but I can't promise, you know what I mean? So really I have nothing promised or set in stone right now, is just because of my schedule right now. It's not even really my schedule right now. It's just waiting around for these damn people to call me and tell me, hey, it's your turn. So, I mean, until then, I just don't have anything right now.
Yeah, I mean, we talked to Jeff Hale, and he said the same thing. He's got a kid on the way, and I mean, you're one of the people that everyone is clamoring. They want to see you pull this guy. They want to see you pull this guy. They hope you come to this tournament, that tournament. It's because you did so well in WAL that everybody's like, I wonder how Paul would do against fill in the blank. It was the same thing with Jeff Hale. But life does get in the way, and we talked to Seth Barnett about this 2 weeks ago, and he said, with WAL, he briefly took the sport, as a profession because there was enough money to support it, at least potentially. And since WO has collapsed and just other things that are going on in his life, he's like, it's a hobby for me, so it's important to me. I'm concentrating on it, but I can't design my entire life around where I'm going to go arm wrestle.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I guess that's the situation most of us are in, at least those of us who have to pay bills and such.
Right, yep.
Let's see. What other questions have I missed on here? Because there's a million comments. A lot of people saying hello and that you're one of their favorite pullers. This guy from Chile says that he loves watching your matches. Let's see. What do we got? What else did I miss in here? Yeah, I mean, there's a few people talking about the mental strength that you need to be in the sport after an arm break or just in general. I mean, when you go up against someone who is an elite level hooker, does that play with your mind at all when you get ready to top roll them?
I wouldn't say play with your mind. I mean, I'd say more trying everything you got to stay the hell out of a hook, you know what I mean? I'm not, it's opposed to that. I mean, at least it's coming, you know what I mean, opposed to not knowing. So I wouldn't say it affects me too much, except for that's what I'm ready for, you know what I mean? I'm definitely, still weary about a top roll because you got those sly guys that, fly off on you, but
right.
It's more of a benefit, I guess. Just because you know it's coming, and you know what you got to do, whether you can or not, to get out of it.
Yeah, and typically,
you mentioned
if you train a top roll, if that's your, like you said, you're a high hook, a top roll, it's kind of like your bread and butter, your one move or your best move anyway. I mean, that's basically built from a career of defending a hook too. So sometimes it's always please try to hook me. Please. Please try to do that.
Yeah, especially the ones that come right at you with the hook. Those are the best because they fall right into it. They don't even know,
Yep.
Mm-hmm. I know you mentioned that you prefer capping whenever you can. Do you set up any differently with someone who has an especially strong hook? Like, do you need goosenecking or anything like that?
I would probably try a little bit of a dump wrist. I don't like a full dump wrist because I feel really vulnerable. But a slight dump wrist with try to max out my pronator, just so I can't get supinated as easy.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. If you do too much of it, then pretty much anybody can just top roll you. Right. It's like you said, those people that are sly, they'll just pull that trick on you, and then you'll be done.
Yep.
Yeah, it leaves you a little too open for a post. If you dump it too much, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, is that a tool that you have to use, posting? I don't think I've seen you do that in any matches that I watched.
I don't really post opposed to what my buddy from PA taught me is more of an up pressure opposed to a back posting pressure, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's everybody kind of gets them both confused, opposed to posting towards your face or up towards the ceiling, you know. I would have to say an straight up pressure more than a posting. But when I first started, that's all I did was a real hard, you know, towards your face posting style top roll, and it worked great. But once I got out of like physical work and didn't use my hands every day, you know, and worked my arms at work, it kind of depleted a little bit, so I wasn't as strong. So I kind of shied away from it, you know, and learned that I was pretty good at a high hook. So I just went with a high hook with side pressure, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the one danger of a really, even if you have a great post, and I understand what you're saying between, you know, posting from your face versus up. It's almost like, it's strange to say, but when you're posting straight up, it's almost like you're using your bicep obviously to lock up and go straight up, but it's almost like you're using your front delt to push your hand through, which is kind of strange because your elbow never comes up. But anyway, the one danger of doing that posting move is sometimes you leave yourself open to side pressure because you're so focused on the bicep that you leave out sideways. So that high hook sometimes is a little better because you get your wrist in and lock up your back, then the side pressure's caught.
Mm-hmm. Right. I see what you're saying. That's interesting. Yeah, so much to learn in this game, man, you know? It's like, it's one of those things, whenever you do one of those, we had a couple little events up here where we had a bunch of amateurs pulling for like a charity kind of thing, and they all at the end are like, I had no idea how complicated this sport was. Yeah. It's just, even amongst us, we've been doing it for a while, it's still, I love hearing about these little intricacies and the different things you can try on different people. It's cool stuff. Is nutrition a big part of your game? Paul, is that something, I know you mentioned earlier, you try to eat clean leading up to WL and stuff. I don't know if that was mostly for weight, or do you feel like it's strongly tied to your performance?
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. I did it just because I had to, you know what I mean? As far as eating to, you know, for fuel or to be stronger or something, I haven't ever really done it for that, so I can't really say, because now I eat whatever I want, and you know, it hasn't seemed to affect my strength level. You know, I'm able to build muscle now because I'm taking in more calories and stuff. But as far as, you know, trying to keep my diet clean and just eating more calories, I don't do it that way. So.
Very cool,
but I'm
man.
not saying that's not beneficial. It's just not the way I roll, you know.
Yeah, I think nutrition really, honestly, lends itself to what you're deficient in. I think some people need a little bit more of some things than other people, and but one thing that everybody needs to get strong is calories. So I think if you're not necessarily deficient in certain vitamins or certain minerals or whatever that you get just from your regular diet, but everybody needs to eat to get strong. So some people need to eat really, you know. Some people have to really structure themselves to eat enough to get what we need as far as nutrition goes. And then as far as calories go, how are we going to get it, really, is whatever your body can tolerate.
Mm-hmm. Right. Kenny Smith is watching now. You missed it, Kenny. We were just talking about how awesome you were just a few minutes ago, so you have to go back and watch that. But he's saying he saw you beat George Stanton years ago, and he knew you were going to be a freak. And there's a lot of people offering you super matches in the comments, Paul, and telling you should come to this tournament, you should come to that tournament, so you can read through those later and see if you want to do any of those things. If they want to fly you around, nobody's offered to fly to Brazil yet, but maybe we talk tomorrow.
Weird, in this sport, they're not offering flights and stuff?
Yeah, I don't understand.
Tony Katowski says you have his hammer and he's coming back for it. So, well, who knows if there'll be an opportunity, but
that's my hammer and he ain't getting it back.
I wonder if there will be any kind of WAL stuff where from now on the only way the hammers change hands is if people come up with like an individual bet about it.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like they were saying, like Devin and Todd about passing them around and giving them. I thought that was a great concept, and I forget who it was that mentioned, about the 65ers. I was willing to give mine to them, I just thought it was a great idea, and I actually hope something like that goes on. I know there's belts and stuff like that for different states and stuff. It's just a cool concept to me.
I agree, man. And I'm curious to see what happens. I do think it was an amazing gesture that they made, bringing the hammers and being willing to trade them in. Devin didn't have to trade any in, as it turned out. But Tony is upset.
Well,
so,
what are we gonna do?
It's gonna be a fun year, man. It's gonna be a fun year. Maybe we'll get to see Tony versus Paul in the upcoming year. That'd be very cool. Yeah. Well, Paul, we really appreciate you spending a little time with us, man. Make sure you thank your family for letting us borrow you for an hour or so. And it was great talking to you, and hopefully we can do it again sometime soon.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me, guys. I
Absolutely.
Appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Good luck with the school and stuff. I hope they call you quick, and I hope you can get it done with and get promoted and all that stuff. And maybe you can be a boss in the near future.
Get it over with. That's all I'm thinking.
Yeah, I hear you, man.
All right, brother.
All right.
Later.
Thanks.
Take care.
Hey.